Sometimes it's hard to see what is and what ain't, but I be bound for mistakes to keep my feet in the
What's up, it's Angela Yee, and you're watching Black Boxing.
Before we bring up our guest, our special guest, what I would like to do is bring up our two co-hosts that are going to be hosting with me. Our first host is the president of the Psychology Society here at New Jersey City University. She's an orientation leader. She works in the Office of Campus Life. Shout out to the office. And she's a dynamic student leader. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all kinds, please put your hands together for Aisha Rathor. Next up, I would like to call up, he's a professor here at NJCU. And he's an NJCU hero story. You know, he came here, if you ever hear, I was about to call you Dr. Williams, you're about to be Dr. Williams. If you ever hear Professor Williams' story, he was an NJCU student that went through the struggles, the trials and tribulations, and worked his way through all of that to become a faculty member, not only here at New Jersey City University, but he's also a faculty member at two other institutions, including Hudson County Community College. He's an entrepreneur who, tied up his bootstraps. I don't even know what tying up your bootstraps means, but I like the way that phrase sounds, so I'm going to use it anyway. Tied up his bootstraps and put all of this great work together. He's a dynamic public speaker. If you saw him earlier today at the criticism to greatness, because he's great now. You see what I'm saying? I planned that. From criticism to greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for my brother, co-founder of TrillOrNotTrill.com, Mr. Lenny Williams. And now, I have to pull out the fancy, schmancy, super dope bio, which is all lovely wrapped in my pocket here. So our closing guest for our leadership conversation, our Trill Talks, we have Angela Yee. She started her career in radio as a co-host of the Cypher Sound. Cypher don't get gas, Cypher. That's throwback New York. I don't know if y'all. Okay, man. Age scratch.
Don't get
Cypher
gas.
Sounds, yeah, there we go. Cypher Sounds Effect Morning Show at Sirius Satellite Radio. She was drafted by Eminem's manager Paul Rosenberg to audition for that slot after inquiring about an available marketing position. Yee impressed her audience and her bosses after a standout interview with Jay-Z. She was hired. Yee later earned her own morning show, The Morning After with Angela Yee, where she honed her craft and soon became one of the most coveted urban radio hosts. After 6 years at Sirius, she was offered several opportunities and opted to become the female voice on The Breakfast Club on Power 105 and radio's #1 market, New York City. Now, I'm going to take this bio and I'm going to say that was a really dope bio.
Don't forget lip service. Official,
It is. Don't forget lips. I wasn't.
All right. Just making sure you know.
Don't stole my shine, man. I had something all prepared for lips.
All right, pardon me. You got it.
No, I'm just kidding. So what I wanted to do was actually bypass all of that. It's a great bio, but the thing that I loved about Angela Yee, and just in the short time about meeting her, is just understanding the diversity and the things that she brings to the table. And just as a fan from an outside looking in, being able to see how poised she is and how she handles herself so effectively in an area that's filled with men, in an area that's filled with testosterone and machismo. She always not only holds her own, but always provides great poise, great intelligence, and great skill on the microphone. She's dope. I'm just super excited to have her here. I talked to her. She's a writer on the low, man, and I'm trying to get that next book when it comes out, Angela, hopefully. But ladies and gentlemen, people of all kind, I want you to please put your hands together for our special guest, Miss Angela Yee. All right, let's get this started. How's everybody doing today?
Good, right?
Man, that sounded kind of weak, folks, right? How's everybody doing today? Awesome. So we're going to get started. We're going to get started with a few questions. Angela, we promise not to go too crazy and hard with the questions today.
I can handle it.
Oh, okay. All right, in that case. So, first, what's your shoe?
It's fine.
All right. So, what we want to do today is, again, we want to facilitate a conversation that involves leadership, that involves this dialogue.
And you've been in a lot of different opportunities and so many things. So can you tell us, we have a great number of college students here. Can you tell us a little bit, before we go into it, about your journey from college student to successful manager to successful radio personality? I mean, you've worn so many hats. Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Well, I have always, and I still do, stress the importance of education. So I'm from Brooklyn, and when I was growing up, my parents did put me in a program called Prep for Prep. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Prep for Prep here, but it's for kids that live in urban areas, and they send you to a program to get you prepared to go to private school and college, so you kind of have a head start. So I do think it's important that everything starts at home. And my parents were always stressing, okay, we got to make sure you're definitely going to go to college and kind of follow that path. And I know some people will tell you college isn't the most important thing, but I do feel like it helped me so much as far as deciding what I wanted to do later in life, meeting some people that have been able to help me along with my path, because it is important to be around like-minded people and people who have goals and want to do, maybe if you're I was an English major. So you might meet a lot of other people who major in what you did, and then later on they're like, oh, okay, I'm doing this, we have some openings. It's a great networking opportunity for later in life. So I went to Wesleyan in Connecticut, and I graduated, and after I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a writer. That was my whole goal. And I did a job like temping that lasted 2 days. I hated it so much. It was awful. I was like opening envelopes all day for 8 hours. I was like, I can't do this. So I started working for Wu-Tang. That was my first job out of college, my first real job. And that was a great experience. It was, all the guys were signed to different labels. They were on tour, so I had a lot of hands-on experience. And I'll tell you this, I was always the first person in the office and the last person to leave. So, and I didn't get paid by the hour. I just did it because I feel a responsibility whenever I do something. And even when I did internships in college, my boss, I had one internship at a record label, and there were 6 of us. And by the end of it, I was the only person still left that was showing up every day. Because I know sometimes it's hard to be motivated when you're not getting paid. But it was a great experience, and I did a lot of things in college that I didn't get paid for, so that later on in life, I'll be able to get a job. And so first I worked for Wu-Tang, then I got another job working for Virgin Records, then I started freelancing. I was doing marketing for a few different companies, and then I started working for Eminem's clothing line. And while I was working there, that job kind of sucked. But he had a clothing line called Shady Limited. It wasn't his fault, but the people that were the distributors, they just really didn't get it. It was like a struggle between them wanting to have clothes with like huge brand names on it and, Eminem's face all over the place. And Eminem's people wanted to be like, a little classier. So it was always an ongoing thing. And after that, I was like, okay, what do I want to do next? And I ended up in radio because I had a lot of experience in marketing. But I looked at some job openings online. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Let me, because you'll learn that when you graduate from college, you'll end up doing a few different things before you decide what works. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Truth.
And you'll be broke. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But I actually saw a job opening at Sirius. So I called. I was like, who do I know that could help me with that? And that was right when Eminem was launching his radio station on Sirius called Shade 45. I believe that a lot of times there's signs and things that happen. I just happened to be looking, I happened to see that. I didn't even realize Eminem was launching that. So I went on the website and then I saw Shade 45 coming soon. I was like, oh, I could just call his manager and let him know I want this marketing position. And when I called him, he said, we're actually looking for a female on the morning for the morning show with Cypher Sounds if you want to audition. And here's another thing that I learned. I auditioned, but I didn't assume that I was going to get it just because I knew his manager and worked for him. You can't ever assume that people are going to do things for you. You have to get yourself in position. I told him, I said, listen, if you can just get me an interview and I'll handle it from there, whether or not it happens, I'm not holding you responsible. I'm not asking you to give me a job. I just want to be able to get my foot in the door. And I had a great relationship with him because I did work really hard when I was there. And even though we were cool with each other, I never took that for granted. There's people that, get hired by somebody they're cool with, and then they think I could just show up late. We had one guy that used to come, he'll go to the gym for like 3 hours and just be missing, thinking he'll never get fired because he was friends with somebody, but he got fired. That only lasts but for so long, so you never take advantage of opportunities that are given to you. And I ended up doing the morning show.
Man, give it a round of applause for that.
The journey, which was amazing, by the way. As a person, who has been a manager in the past, could you give us some tips on how student leaders can manage their e-board or organization? So a lot of students here are presidents of the e-board, the organizations, and you have been in a role of management. So what are some tips or advice you would like to give some of these students here?
Well, you have to be really self-motivated. A lot of times there's not somebody telling you what to do, so you have to figure out what's important. And all the time, if you ever are feeling comfortable, or you're feeling like, oh, I'm so bored, I have nothing to do, that means you're not doing enough. So you should always be trying to figure out what is the next opportunity, what can I do to challenge myself. It's never good enough to be complacent. And that's one of the main things that I learned. And it is important to make sure you prioritize, make sure you know what is the most important things to do, and maintain great relationships. Like I said earlier, I always maintain great relationships with people. I always tell people it's also good to get out. Sometimes you might think of going out as, oh, I'm not going to just waste my time going out and socializing, but socializing is also networking. And that's the job also. So whenever you go out, make sure you present yourself in a way when you're around people that you don't embarrass yourself. You don't ever want to get drunk and do anything crazy and then be like, what did I do? And then people, you don't ever want to be rude to people. You don't know what position somebody that you meet will be in later where they can help you out. You just have to treat everybody equally. And that's important with social media. You see people be digging up them old tweets and you be like, oh man, you don't know who you're going to end up working for. So really be careful, like the things that you say and do on social media also, because that never goes away. You might think you deleted it, but it'll come back up, and you see that happening all the time now.
I think the next question, I'm just going to jump right in, since you are from the Breakfast Club. I'm pretty sure everybody here listens to the Breakfast Club. We enjoy your show. And you know we have to ask some questions to artists, and you guys don't hold back. So tell the students here, especially when they're going on interviews or around faculty, how important it is to ask questions. The importance of asking questions, not just questions, but questions that matter.
Well, that's why it's important to do your research. I feel like one of the most important things when we have an interview is if you do your research, you'll be able to ask the right questions. You know, I hate when I hear interviews and somebody comes in and somebody says, so what are you here promoting? You should know that, you know, when somebody comes to it. Like the first thing I try to find out, if an artist is coming, an actor, a comedian, whoever is coming, what is going on with them right now and what is their purpose for them feeling like they need to be doing press? Because I feel like it's a thing of respect too. I respect you enough that I did my research and I know what questions I can ask, and it makes somebody more comfortable and open to asking questions. So you can ask more difficult things if you have information about the person. Like, you know, somebody comes up and you're like, what are you promoting? And they're like, dang, they don't even know who I am or what I'm doing. But if you can say, okay, so I know you just put your album out last week and it's, you know, it looks like it's going to sell about 75,000 in the first week. So a lot of times people compare you to this person. They'll be more open to talk because it's conversational. You know me, you have some background, now we're cool.
Great. I think I'm just going to jump in. It's the same thing just for a job interview. It's the same exact thing. You got to make sure you understand the job, the location. You know, even going to the location the day before is a big deal because you don't know about the traffic and understanding that commute. The commute might be something that you don't enjoy. So little things like that matter. And also when you know research and you kind of speak about the things that you're passionate about, that job might not be for you, but they'll respect you enough to give you a job that will fit your position. So research is very important.
And I try to get everywhere early because there is nothing worse than feeling like you are running late and you're all flustered and you don't have it together, like just in case anything goes wrong. Now, that's a terrible impression to make someplace if you're late. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna give myself an extra 45 minutes just in case something happens. If I get there early, I'll sit downstairs, have a cup of tea, get my thoughts together. Now I walk upstairs, I'm relaxed, and I have it together.
So, Angela, from one female to the next, you're extremely confident. And you work in an all-male-dominated field. So as a woman, what advice can you give to the rest of the student leaders on your experience?
Well, one of the first things they told me when I first started doing radio was that I have to have tough skin. And that is a very, very, you know, one of the main things, I think, in order to make it in what it is that we do, because a lot of stuff is so public, you get criticized a lot, and guys say things sometimes that you're not going to agree with, but it is important for you to have tough skin so that everything that is said doesn't offend you. You're not, you know, I don't ever want to be at work crying. I've never cried at work ever. And I think if you're a guy or a girl in general, you know, just things like that, you can't get emotional when you're at work. So I think that's important. I think it's also important to make sure that people know you don't take any, can I curse? No, but I think it's very important that people know that you don't take shit from anybody. So if somebody says something that you don't like, it's just you have to be able to cut them down. And what's important about that, like I say, having your research and being prepared, just make sure you know what you're talking about it. And when you're talking about it, you know what you're saying. And that's why it's important not to get emotional. You don't want to ever get emotional and start screaming and yelling. You always have to be rational and explain to people how you feel. And sometimes you're going to agree to disagree. And there will always be instances, I think early on in my career, where you're a female and people treat you differently because you're a female. It could be a great thing or a terrible thing. Sometimes you're a female, people automatically assume you're an assistant. Even if when I was a manager, I would, go places and they would be talking to the artist and be like, okay, so, I want to talk to your manager. And then they'll be like, oh, this is her right here. And they're like, oh, and they look so stupid because the whole time I was sitting there, but I don't say anything, I just let it happen because I know it's going to happen. So you do have to be confident in who it is and what you're doing and know what you bring to the table, because at the end of it all, other people will end up looking stupid and you'll be good to go. So always let your work speak for itself. That's what I've always done.
I think that's a great point, if I can touch on that. And then we spoke about that a little bit earlier, is that, research and understanding what the position that you're in will always be your fallback. That's something that you can always lean on, something that you could always hold on to. You can never challenge facts.
What's up, it's Angela Yee, and you're watching Black Box Film. She bought a house. Now that inspires me, and your friends that are around you should always inspire you. It should be people that you hang out with that you're like, okay, I see them doing that. I think that's a great idea. That's the path I want to follow, just all the positive things. So she bought a house. I said, all right, now I got to figure out how I'm going to do this. Now I got to get a house. I went with her to look for her house. I learned everything about getting a mortgage, saving up my down payment, all of those things. And so, that is one thing that I learned. Styles P from The Lox, he came on the show, and, he opened a juice bar in the Bronx and in Yonkers. And now we're opening one in Brooklyn. We did a partnership because after he left, I was inspired, and I set up a meeting with him. And I said, can we open one of these in Brooklyn? I think it would be great. I always juice at home, and we do it all the time. And we actually just signed the lease, and so we're in the process of building it out.
Congratulations.
Let's clap it up for that. Let's clap it up for
that. My juice game is strong too.
But I do feel like I love when we have guests on the show, and I feel like I learn something from them. So that's just something important. Like every day I learn something from everybody. I was excited to come here because I was like, all right, I can't wait to hear what I learned today.
I love it. One of my favorite interviews was when Dame Dash came, and you talked about entrepreneurship, and it was Dame Dash, and it got into that heated conversation about...
You had them? Oh. They wasn't good.
I mean, I've had better pictures.
I have too.
Yeah. But I don't know, if you haven't seen that interview, it got really heated between two guests.
No, Envy was so mad.
So mad.
I think everybody knows you can't really say anything or argue with Damon Dash. There's just no point.
Period.
But I do feel like, what was unfortunate about that interview was I felt like it was some misinformation. I believe in entrepreneurship. I believe, like he said, if you have a boss and that person's your daddy and you're calling someone daddy, that's not true. Everybody doesn't start off as a boss. Sometimes you have to learn things and build up until you feel confident enough and you have the experience to go out on your own and do something, and he also, I felt like it was an insult to people who work for someone. I think it's important for like the teachers that we have that I respected growing up. I almost was a teacher. I went to school also for that. And I think it's important, even for me, a lot of things that I did have led me to the path that I'm on, where I have my own businesses and I've been buying properties, but I also have a full-time job that I love. And yes, we have bosses, but that's like the core of what I do, and then I have all my other things that I do.
I'll just jump in on that. I think I always tell students all the time, teach entrepreneurship, the things that I learned working at Target taught me structure for the rest of my life. So those jobs that you might not think are important or you don't like, you need to take some of those talents and some of that knowledge and remember it and keep it moving forward and grow with the business as well.
As you touched a little bit about this when you talked about, entering the social life and going and things like that. I mean, it's so tough. How many of us, I'm just going to ask the audience, how many of us have had some sort of issues balancing our personal life, plus our social life, plus our school life, just by a show of hands? All right, some of you who have not raised your hand, I saw a couple in there. Well done. But for the rest of us, we're struggling to do this, right? We're struggling to do so. I know, right? I know, you need to be hosting this. With that said, I mean, it's so tough to be able to balance your personal life plus your professional life. Like you said, I mean, you have your job. You're also an entrepreneur, you know, starting new businesses, partnering up. I mean, your real estate. I remember seeing you on a real estate show one day, and I was like, man, she's going at it, man, getting all this stuff. Yeah, I remember that with Jay, right? Yeah, with Jay. And so, you know, working through real estate, and then also just your own creative time, and then also like you have to make appearances, and you also want to have some time for fun on yourself and your social life. So there are so many things all embroiled into one. Like how, I need some help. I need you to help me.
Well,
help us. Help.
I think for me, it's kind of easy for me to incorporate all of it together. You know, like sometimes say we have work to do, I have to travel to Miami for work. Oh no, but I might say, okay, I'm gonna stay for 2 extra days and tell my friends to come down and, you know, we'll all go. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do. Like, I'm the person that organizes everything for my friends. If it's somebody's birthday, somebody's baby shower, somebody's wedding, it's like, okay, Angela, you're gonna get the club, you're gonna do this. I'm the person that does all of that. But I'm fortunate because I have a lot of relationships to get stuff done. So it's somebody's birthday, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tell the club I'm a host, we're gonna get a table, nobody's gotta worry about buying bottles, I got that, all of us are gonna get in, and we'll be good to go.
My
So.
birthday's tomorrow.
All right, I got you. So I think for me, I try to make sure I incorporate that. But whatever it is that you do, if you're dating somebody, if you're friends with people, you should make sure that they are supportive and understand, because I get it. Like, a lot of my friends are busy. A lot of us are out here trying to get it, and you're real friends, and people understand. There's people that I'm friends with from when I was young. I might not talk to them for a month, but when I do talk to them, it's like no big deal because they understand. You know, one of my friends texted me today. That's how I started my Ask Ye advice segment on the morning show, because all my friends come to me for everything, for advice. And it's much easier now, I feel like, with text messaging, you know, with phone calls, FaceTime, all of that. You can always keep in touch with your friends whenever you have some free time and people that are important to you. So, you know, tomorrow I'm hanging out with my mom all day because I haven't seen her in a minute.
Hey, Mom.
But you do have to make time for things like that. And I'll do stuff like have all my friends come over my house and bring their kids all at once. And then be like, okay, so y'all, I'll see you guys next month.
I think another thing I just want to ask is, so Jeff and I started a blog, it's called Trill and Not Trill. And what are we doing? We're taking pop culture and turning it into leadership lessons, education lessons, and entrepreneurship. So we kind of see that pop culture can play a part in the college setting. How do you feel about that? Do you think pop culture can play a part? Since you did education, you did go to college, and now you work in the entertainment field, do you think that pop culture can play a part when teaching students in education?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you saw Kendrick Lamar just went to this school in Manchester in the UK, and I think you could read Kendrick Lamar lyrics and be like, okay, this is very educational, and I learned a lot, and it's inspirational, and it's poetry, you know, and like we were talking about entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things that you can learn from watching what other people did, and a lot of things you can learn not to do from watching what other people did as well. So I feel like pop culture is very much embedded into what we do, into the educational system. It is a part of everyday life, you know.
So I'm a student leader, and then, you know, I'm trying to get to where you're at. You're very successful. So I guess as a student, what I would want to ask you is that you've created such a high brand for yourself, and you know, you're Angela. You know what I'm saying? So
That sounded like I was important.
Yeah. So how did you do that? What are some tips that you can give us so we can eventually do that for ourselves?
Well, I would say that nothing trumps hard work. You really do. It really does take tons of hard work. There's absolutely no shortcuts that you can take to being successful. It's so important to have a good foundation. And that foundation is that you have a great reputation as far as you deliver. Whatever it is that you say that you can do, you do it. If you can't do it, you let them know ASAP, like, listen, there was some roadblocks, this isn't going to be able to happen. I know sometimes we can't get something done, so what do? We avoid that person. We don't take their calls, we don't return the text messages. And now we're like, damn, I should have just told them. You know, so I think it's very important to be confrontational and to let people know right away if things are going to happen or if they're not going to happen. And that is, I think that is a great foundation. Being organized and responsible. I try to do everything I say I'm going to do, and I try to be on time with everything. I try to respond to emails. I try to respond to text messages. You'll be surprised how many people can't do the basic things of showing up on time. Morning radio, we get paid the most, but it is the hardest job because you got to be on time every day. You know how hard it is to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every single day, no matter what, and we have to go to work if it's snowing. Hurricane Sandy, they made us stay in a hotel across the street with no electricity and no hot water just to make sure that we could make it to work every single day. Yeah, like it's a lot, and a lot of people think, oh, you just go on the air and talk every day, but no, every single day I make sure I'm prepared. I make sure I have my stories together. You know, we have interviews. I make sure we just have to make sure that we are good to go. Some days last 18 hours, and you still got to get up and be ready to go. So all of those things, I think, are the foundation for you building yourself as a brand. And like I said earlier, never feel comfortable and complacent. As soon as you're feeling like you're just cruising through, that means that you got to figure out what's next.
I just want to jump in on that.
That's real.
You said you're on morning radio, you have all these great successes. I think a lot of times in our generation, we are all about the grind. How hard you're grinding, you know, sleep when you're dead.
Team grind, hashtag hustle hard.
24/7, 28/9.
Out here.
We out here in the streets.
Hashtag.
Right? My question is this, my question is simple, it's just, how do you tell a student, because a lot of times students think you have to work so hard to get where you're at. You do have to work hard, but what's the difference between, explain to them the difference between working hard and working smart? And how do you decipher the both? What's the difference?
Well, I never ever would tell somebody don't sleep, because sleep is so important. I mean, if you want to be able to think, I know sometimes I only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, but trust me, on the weekend, you know, yeah, it's over.
I didn't know I had that, right?
But it is important to balance your time. Think about how much time that we spend looking at Instagram, staying up at night, reading the blogs, all those things that are unnecessary and unimportant at that time when we could be doing something more productive. Get those things out of the way first. You know, all the things that you should be doing. A lot of times we procrastinate. It's important not to procrastinate. I like to get things done early so that by the time, like, I do all my work for the show the night before. So that in the morning when I come in, I already know what's going on. I just brush up on, like, you know, if the game sends out a crazy tweet in the morning and that just happened, any type of breaking news, you know, I'm on top of it, but I have everything else already ready to go. So I'm not at work, I'm not frazzled, I have it done, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed. It really is about not procrastinating and being prepared, and that's being smart. A lot of, like, sometimes, I mean, I do it too, so we're all guilty of it, but sometimes I'll be laying in bed looking at my Instagram for way too long, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life right now, you know? So
It's that one stroll that gets too much. You're just like, man, I really just looked at this 37th picture in a row. And at a point, though, it does hit you. We're just like, you know, I gotta get off this thing. Just a real quick Instagram story. That's how bad I've gotten into Instagram. This is me pouring my soul out to y'all. I've strolled through Instagram, right, and then stopped, closed the Instagram app, put the phone down, pick the phone right back up, and go right back to Instagram. Like, not even go into another app. Like, in my head, I'm like, I might have missed a picture. Did I not see these pictures already? I think I just double-clicked on this, and then it's not until you see that one picture that you've seen like 4 times, and you're just like, man, you know it's time for me to get off. I've seen this picture of this selfie of her 6 times now. I have the phone back. Right, and then, I shouldn't have liked it. What did I do?
So for all of y'all stalking people on Instagram, all right, put the phone down. Not necessary. You are wasting way too much time. Oh, he liked her picture. Well, who else's picture did he like? Well, let me go look at who followed that person. Oh, they friends with that person. I had to get that together, and I was like, okay, you know, that's all on me. Like, as far as I have to book the studio, I have to book the guests, I have to schedule everything, I have to get the makeup artist for the girls, I have to make sure that it comes out on time, we have to do the video. It's a lot of things that go into play with that, and I do all of that myself. So, you know, that is something that I said, okay, I'm going to bring this back, because it was something I was passionate about, that I thought was fun, and that I thought was a niche that was kind of missing. So basically, every time I feel like, okay, work is comfortable, I'm good, let me figure out what else I should be doing to add on to this. Now I'm comfortable doing that, so, you know, now I've been pitching it. We did a pilot for a TV show, so it's looking like something might happen soon. But I always make sure that I'm thinking, like, okay, how can what I'm doing turn into something bigger, you know?
That's awesome. I think that's something that we should also look at. You know, sometimes like graduation, for example, something like that, you don't think that it's going to happen. And like, man, I've been here, for those of you that may have been over 4 years, you're thinking, when am I going to graduate? Or maybe you're a first or second year student and you're thinking this long path, it seems so big at first, you know what I mean? Like buying a house, you know, when you initially think about it, it's like, man, it's so much money, I have to save, I have to do this. And the next thing you know, I mean, it just happens, you know, with the work and the effort and the sacrifice that you put forth towards it. So I think that's something that, to add on to what Angela said, is that you have to really put it into existence. Not only put it into existence, but actually map it out and plan it. And I think sometimes we think, I'm going to be the next, you know, star or whatever, and you get no plan, just hoping that, you know, maybe I'll just throw something on Instagram or YouTube and I'm the next one. And it doesn't work like that. I mean, it actually puts in a lot of time and effort. And that day-to-day, I just one like quick thing about how important the day-to-day is. I mean, you mentioned that, you know, about, you know, every day you have to really pay attention to details.
Yeah, if I may just add, you know, setting long-term goals are really great. As student leaders, you need to set long-term goals. But for me, balancing out being president of an organization, working in this office, working in that office, taking 15 credits per semester, like, how do you find a balance? Like, what advice can you give us?
I always give myself something to look forward to. So I might say to myself, okay, after work I have to do stuff every single night, and then I have to get up every day for the next 8 days. But in July, I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to go on vacation, and that always makes me feel good when I think about it. And even if it's something small, like, okay, next week, Tuesday, I'm going to go to the spa. Like, I think it's really important for you to reward yourself with small things that you have. I always give myself something to look forward to.
Do we have any questions? All right, Rodney.
What advice can you give to some of us who are young and we want to, like, I'm an entrepreneur, like, I just started my own entertainment company, but one of the challenges that I face is that I'm so young, and a lot of people assume that I didn't do my research or my homework. So what advice would you give me so I can continue to keep persevering despite the opposition that I'm facing?
What kind of entertainment company is it?
Well, it's an artist development resource company. So what I do is I provide the resources for the people who are like singers and rappers who need professional photos, they need producers, sound engineers, and studio time. So I'm the liaison between them, and I charge 20%.
Okay, there we go. Everybody needs that. You know what is great, I think, for you is if you have a presence online that looks great. Like if you have a website that has everything that you've done, all of the resources available, and people can go to it and see for themselves, and you follow up. And this is where being an English major is important. When you do follow up with people, make sure that you're very articulate, everything is spelled properly, all the grammar is correct. Because sometimes I get emails from people and they might have some great services that I would have liked, but then I see the email and I'm like, I don't understand what they're talking about though. And now I can't take you seriously. No, I'm serious. Like everything about your presentation matters and follow-up matters. Because a lot of times people will come up to you and be like, I really want to do this, or I can help you with that. And then you never hear from them again. So I think it is important for you to make sure when you get a great connection, send them whatever information they need. Be humble about it still, because, you know, never be like, oh, you think I'm too, you know, always just be humble and show and prove. And always follow up in a way that's not a nuisance, but in a way that's like, hey, just checking back in with you. I saw you just, and be personable, you know. I know last time we met, I saw you were with your daughter. How is everything going? Just wanted to check in and see if you needed my services. I see you're launching this, and you know we have this available. So if you need my help, let me know, and just make sure you follow up. Follow up is so important. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, you know, real quickly, it's something like I was reading the other day, about 85%, from a public speaker's perspective, 85% of speeches that are booked by colleges, institutions, as well as corporate organizations are not followed through until after 3 responses. So 3 contacts with that actual space until you get a response. So like either 3 no's or 3 emails until you get a response. And I've seen that from my own personal.
Put together your own events with people that are doing similar things to yourself. Figure out how you can do that. And I think it's always important to record all of those things and make sure you get it online so that you build up a following yourself. You know, but instead of waiting for somebody to put you on, maybe you get together. I'm sure you know other people who do what you do as well, and you have a network. You all should all get together and start doing your own events. I think that's always great. Just get it started yourself. I remember coming up, they used to have this thing called Lyricist Lounge. and that was for like underground artists that weren't signed, and you know, people didn't know them yet. And everybody, after a while, everybody started coming out to that. Start your own movement.
I spit at Lyricist Lounge back in the day.
So did Eminem. That's where I met Eminem.
I think also just the power of collaboration. Everybody's not in competition. You know, that's the problem sometimes that we have. You know, you can look at people on campus like Jeff and myself, who both were speakers. We could have easily just been in competition, but we decided to come together.
I want to just close by saying this, is that, you know, we want to be able to take you to this space where you're having these types of conversations and dialogues on the regular. I think that's something that doesn't often happen. And sometimes we sit down and when we meet with one another, we talk about everything but leadership, everything but development, everything but community, everything but learning. So it's one thing, and I think this is where we have to be able to balance it. It's one thing you should be able to listen to some Taylor Swift and listen to some Future and still have a conversation about, you know, student development. Like, I think that's fine. I think that's something that we need to be able to work with, and I think that's why it's important that we have people like Angela Yee here and others that are having these conversations, that are willing to really take the time out to talk to young folks and to talk to people in general. And I think that's what we want to be able to do. That's what Trill Talks is all about. That's what this conference is all about. So I'm really excited, really happy to have everybody here. And let's give one more round of applause for Miss Angela
Yee. Independent, she open doors. She's ready, and they can see how triple she making me. She as down as they could be. Beauty calls with the haters free. She ready.